Thank you, Taylor. I am so pleased to introduce our commencement speaker, former Texas Supreme Court Chief Justice Wallace B. Jefferson, a man who is no stranger to Austin College. Indeed, he has, by his many appearances here, become, from our perspective, a member of the Austin College extended family. My first acquaintance with our speaker goes back to a phone conversation I had in the fall of 2004 with then Austin College L Association President Osler McCarthy, one of the proud fathers of a graduating senior in the audience today. As Osler and I planned what has become the Dr. Kenneth Street Law Symposium, Osler said to me, "We simply have to get the chief to campus." Just why Osler was so insistent on inviting the chief to be the keynote speaker at our second symposium became clear almost as soon as the chief arrived on campus. The tone set by the chief, both in legal substance and personal demeanor, was one he would repeat again when the Texas Supreme Court twice heard oral argument on campus and in his appearance as the keynoter for our community's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration. The substance of the chief's remarks consistently revealed the highest ethical commitment to the rule of law and to the finest legal craftsmanship, while at the same time reminded all of us that the rule of law depends on the judicial system being available to all citizens, including our least advantaged. The personal demeanor of the chief, one of a reserved dignity, but also of a humble approachability, was on each occasion an imitable example for those of our students who aspired to careers in public service. The chief's public accomplishments are well known to most of you and far too extensive to present today. But I would like to call attention to his selection by Texas Appleseed for its 2004 J. Chris Daugherty Good Apple Award for his devotion to justice for all Texans. The Appleseed Award accurately reflects the Chief Justice's approach to judicial service. In Chief Justice Jefferson's own words, "The courts exist to serve the people." Being a college that serves primarily through teaching and mentoring, we are greatly honored today to have as our 2015 commencement speaker a close friend of the college, a great teacher and mentor, Wallace B. Jefferson.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that warm introduction. Dr. Haas, Dr. Piñeros, Chairman Williams, Dr. Romer, Dr. Street. As you've just heard, I've been a guest on this campus many times, but this is the most special of all. I am honored to greet the proud grandparents, uncles, aunts, siblings, mothers and fathers, and most importantly, the Austin College class of 2015. And before I go on, I want to thank you, Madam President and trustees, for my honorary degree. To the class of 2015, this is how you do it without cracking a book. Now, I practiced law in San Antonio with the father and grandfather of one of your graduates, David Smith. And my friend and colleague on the Supreme Court of Texas, about whom you've just heard, Osler McCarthy, along with his wife, Diane, are the parents of another, Gabe McCarthy. And seeing David and Gabe embark on a new journey with all of you fills me with great joy. And no small amount of wonder to see all of you here so early, the morning after what I presume were last night's great celebrations. Before you begin your journey, I hope you will pause to consider what you have already achieved, but also how you will devote your achievements to the good of others. Frederick Douglass, a former slave, a great orator, said, education means emancipation. It means light and liberty. It means the uplifting of the soul of man into the glorious light of truth, the light only by which men can be free. Now, he cautioned that it is not only light that we need, but fire. Not just a gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. Now, when we think about the dark ages in our nation and world history, whether it's slavery or the oppression of women, the Holocaust or apartheid, these were conquered not only by light, but by fire, thunder, and earthquake. A liberal education is not an end in itself. It must be deployed to combat ignorance and oppression. It will be your foundation to build a life of consequence. Now, I think we should remind ourselves from time to time that not so long ago, the law would not permit a woman to vote. Think about that. Religious intolerance barred many of our forefathers from public service. And the enforcers of these norms, they all had impressive legal educations. But they were either blind to inequities or worse, they exploited their education to suppress their neighbors. I want to take you back to 1900, the year 1900 in Palestine, Texas, hundreds of miles east of here and a generation or so after emancipation. Segregation ruled the day. My grandmother, who was born there, often talked about her father, Samuel. He was a postal worker. He spent every day walking long routes delivering mail. Now, some of his customers refused to receive letters from a black man. Samuel's boss went to those customers and said, "Oh, that's quite all right. I would not think of compelling you to suffer the indignity of receiving mail from Samuel Williamson. And so I have a solution for you. You can retrieve your mail from the post office yourselves, miles away. And the result? Instantaneous mail delivery integration." We should never underestimate how the desire for comfort can influence change. But not all forms of bigotry have such practical answers. What if Samuel's family needed a doctor or a lawyer? Well, Samuel had brothers. His brothers Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Well, what was the answer for them? Well, Matthew was a dentist, and Mark a preacher, and John a lawyer. And Luke, we're not sure, but we tend to think that maybe he was a doctor in terms of the biblical theme of the name of the family. Education, in other words, was the key. They received degrees from Bishop College, which was then in Marshall, Texas, and postgraduate degrees from Meharry in Tennessee and Howard University in D.C. Frederick Douglass said, "Education means light and liberty," and he was right. Other tools have helped achieve liberty. Thurgood Marshall used the rule of law, and many courageous judges ruled that the 14th Amendment prohibited invidious discrimination. These are judges of the Fifth Circuit and many in the South. Now, would it surprise you to learn that even some Southern judges before the Civil War were progressive in that sense, long before Brown versus Board of Education? In Waco, for example, in the 1850s, a district judge ruled in favor of a free black man who wanted to be released from a contract that he had signed that sold himself from freedom into slavery. And the judge thought, the law cannot permit a free person to give up the fundamental right to liberty. Well, that was not a popular decision in McLennan County at the time. It may not have even been the judge's personal preference. In fact, the judge himself was a slave owner. That judge was Nicholas W. Battle. His slave was named Shedrick Willis, and Shedrick Willis was my great-great-great-grandfather. Great irony in this story. Judge Battle left the bench after that ruling to fight in the Civil War for the Confederacy. When he came back to McLennan County, he was still a leader in the community, a district judge again, and he was contending with the community that was still resisting the Union victory. And he came to a podium at a meeting like this and he said, no. He said, look, I have recently sworn an oath to defend the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendments, and I'm going to honor my oath. And those of you who contend otherwise are supporting a revolution, and I cannot tolerate that. And he said that knowing the community knew his background as an owner of slaves and a soldier in the Confederate Army. This, for me, is what the rule of law is all about, and what we always have to keep in mind, and that is that the rule of law holds our community together under principles of liberty. And Shedrick Willis had been a slave. After the Civil War, he became a city councilman and served 2 terms as a public servant. So if you can imagine going from private property to becoming a leader in your community. I've gone back and looked in the minutes of the city council books where he signed in as president pro tem. So 1 year, you're private property, and the next a public servant under our great democracy. And these 2 gentlemen, the former slave and the former slave owner, you would think they would part company after the Civil War, but no, that's not what happened. One of the reasons Shedrick Willis came to serve on the city council was he had the support of his former master, Nicholas Battle. This is the kind of country that we live in today, one in which political differences, economic inequalities, they can go away under a constitution as great as ours that promotes liberty and equality. So these are they're practical solutions to the problems that you will face in the years to come. Education you have behind you, you can use that to the advantage of yourselves and your families. The rule of law is critical in this country. These tools helped. But again, Douglas was right. Sometimes it takes a storm, the Civil War, the Civil Rights Movement, bitter political battles. All of these combined with people of faith and goodwill to transform our nation. So here, graduates, is where you come in. You are superbly educated, and you are now going out into the world. You will witness in your lives a discord between the ideal of liberty and justice for all and the reality that we as a society fall short. Douglas warned that where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, well, then neither persons nor property will be safe. So I admonish you that when you see these failings, I urge you to act. You hear platitudes all the time about how fulfilling public service is, but it is. Commit yourselves to public service, whatever else you are doing in life. The prior speaker talked about helping an individual, and I think that is an immense obligation. You can also help your city, your state, and our country to extend the blessings of liberty to all. Only then can the Palestine of East Texas avoid the ancient turmoil plaguing Palestine of the Middle East. So bring the light, but also the fire of your education to expand the rights of everyone you touch. A gentle rain will help replenish those rights, but a storm will fill the reservoirs of justice for decades to come. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you.